Why are my bonds losing money? I thought bonds were supposed to be the slow, steady part of the portfolio that just kind of chugged along, and they're losing money. The price is going down. What's happening? That's what we're talking about today. Sit tight. So bond prices and interest rates work like a teeter-totter, a seesaw, a little kid's toy where one side goes up and the other side goes down. So you've got interest rates on one side, bond prices on the other. If interest rates are rising, it pushes bond prices down. Vice versa, if interest rates are going down, it pushes bond prices up, which can be beneficial for you. That's not what we're seeing right now. Right now we're seeing interest rates on the rise. Because of that, bond prices are dropping. I'll explain why. So think of it in terms like this. A bond is a loan. We know that, right? If you invest in a bond, you loan money to a municipality, a corporation, a government for a fixed period of time, typically for a fixed interest rate. So you might say, hey, I invested in a 10-year bond. I'm getting 2.5% from my bond. They have to pay me 2.5% interest every year for the 10 years. And at the end of the term, they have to give me all my money back, provided that they're still around. That's credit risk, the risk that they won't be around to pay me. But assuming they are, I haven't experienced the credit risk, they pay me at the end of the 10 years. Along the way, I've made my 2.5%. Sounds fine. What happens if interest rates go up 2 or 3 years into owning that bond? Let's say that other similar bonds are now paying 5% interest. Well, if you need to sell yours, you've got 7 years left on it at a below market interest rate. Nobody's going to pay full price for that bond because it's earning less than what other bonds are currently earning. You've experienced the effects of interest rate risk. Interest rates went up, and so the bond price went down. Now, most folks don't own individual bonds, they own bond funds, but those funds are priced daily based upon what's going on with interest rates. And so what they've seen is their bond mutual funds, the value on them has gone down as interest rates have risen, and as the threat that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates even more has come, bond prices have dropped. So how do you figure out what kind of interest rate risk you have in your portfolio other than just looking at the statement and seeing if your bonds went up or down in value? Well, you want to look at the duration. Duration is a measure of the interest rate risk that you have in your portfolio. So there are two types of duration that you might see. One is called modified duration. That's not the normal one that you see when you look up what the duration of a bond fund is. Normally what you're looking at is what's called Mcaulay Duration. Mcaulay Duration, sometimes shortened to MACD. MACD is not a rapper. MACD might be a rapper, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about Mcaulay Duration. When I say MACD, again, how much interest rate do you have in your bonds? So duration is the risk that you have from your interest rates from the bonds. And so as interest rates would rise, bond prices fall. The longer term bonds that you own, generally speaking, the more interest rate risk that you have. If your portfolio holds a bunch of 20-year bonds and interest rates go up and they've got 18 years left on them, that's going to drop substantially more than a portfolio that has a bunch of 2-year bonds in it, because you've only got 2 years until those things mature and you can reinvest at the new higher interest rates. A couple of ways to get around this in your portfolio. One, you can always buy individual bonds, and then as long as you can hold them until maturity, you won't actually experience the loss, provided they have the ability to repay you at the end of the term. If you're using funds, you're just at the whim of the manager, because if they choose to sell something or if they need to sell something at a time when prices are lower, it's going to lock in that actual loss. Versus if you're in control of it, you don't necessarily have to sell, you just hold it until maturity. Another thing that a lot of folks do is what's called a ladder, where they'll say, I own some 1-year bonds, 2-year bonds, 3-year bonds, 4-year bonds, all the way out, so that they regularly have something that's maturing, which they can then reinvest at the end of the line. So you have a ladder of all of your different bond maturities. That's another way that you can get around, to some degree, interest rate risk, is planning for it yourself through a bond or fixed income ladder. You can actually do that with CDs and certain types of annuities as well, not just bonds. So that's the gist here of what's going on. Interest rates are rising, bond prices are going down. If interest rates continue to rise, bond prices will continue to go down. That's just the way it works. Hopefully you don't have more risk than what you're comfortable with in your bond portfolio. If you're curious, go look up your duration. You'll see what kind of risk you have in there as it pertains to interest rate risk. That's all for the video today. Hope you learned something. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you soon.